It's scary that someone in this town is killing our young men.
Murders that happen down there and they're never solved.
Everybody that they find down there, they find them in the woods.
They're happening back to back.
A lot going on in this town, but don't nobody talk about it.
But what if it was your kid? What if it was your grandson?
When you hear something like that in this area, you go, Lunenburg? Here?
The whole case is bizarre. I mean, I don't even know where you want to start at.
He got shot in the back, he got dismembered.
Both arms and both legs.
In a shallow grave, he had lye poured on top of him.
This is probably one of the worst homicides, not just in this county, but in the state of Virginia.
What in the world could you do for a person to do that to another person?
17 years old, he didn't deserve this. He was still a kid trying to find his way.
Antonio Rich, his body was actually discovered by a VDOT crew working in the area.
This should have not been his final resting place, on the side of the road in the bushes, like he was nothing.
He was 19 years old, had been shot several times.
You know, I already knew when I opened the door and knew it was them that it was my son.
My son did not kill himself.
Just don't make sense.
Why were there 6 people at the apartment complex and no one asked him questions?
6 people in the house.
Somebody knows something.
Why was his pockets rifled through?
And why would I take my clothes off, take my phone and my money and put it somewhere?
So they got a lot of questions.
Please just tell me what happened to my son. That's all I want to know.
I want justice.
They got a whole lot of murders down there unsolved.
They need to act on this now. Every single case in Lunenburg County.
We reached out to the town manager of Kinbridge, Victoria Police, the new police chief, the mayor of Kinbridge. We sent multiple requests to the sheriff's department. All of those organizations basically doing this.
Somebody out there knows something.
The town is small.
It's people that knows what happened to my son.
It's too small not to know.
We're all family, like, we grew up in Center Street together, all of us.
I'm sorry that this happened to you, but I will get justice for you.
I just want answers for my son. I want answers for my family. I wasn't ready for him to go.
That's my baby. My baby.
There's a dark cloud that's been hovering.
I miss everything about him, everything. I miss him a lot. It's a struggle on a day-to-day basis. You know, people say take it one day at a time. I actually take it 1 second at a time. Because I'm forced to just deal with it. But I still have to go on to get justice for him. And that's a promise. I wake up every morning and I make sure I tell him I'm sorry that this happened to you, but I will get justice for you.
Well, 17-year-old Seion Carroll went missing November 2nd of 2022. His body found in a shallow grave, dismembered about 10 days later, actually on this road you see here behind me.
Both arms and both legs. Both arms and both legs was dismembered. And he had a lot of chop wounds, I guess, from them trying to dismember him.
Seion Carroll was last seen at his grandmother's house near Center Street.
He was down there for like 4 months. Cause he was in some trouble up here, but they found out that he didn't, wasn't in. So they asked me, could I take custody of him to keep him from up here around all of this. So I agreed with the courts and got him down there. And he was doing fine. Just kept telling him stay from down there hanging with those guys and stuff. But
they had some sort of an argument earlier in the night about jackets that were on the floor.
Then about an hour later, he came in there. He was like, Grandma, I'm sorry. And he went on outside where he always go outside and walk around the yard smoking his black and mild because I wouldn't let him smoke in the house.
This was what time of night when you guys
It was about 9 or 10.
So by 1 a.m. was he outside or?
I don't know. I went to sleep. And when I got up that morning, I went back there in the room because I usually wake him up to get him ready, for to meet the van out there. And I said, well, maybe he already, went out there to court the van. So I didn't think nothing else of it. So I went on, got ready, went to work, came back home. And I was like, he usually be in the house by the time I get off work. So I called the school and they said they hadn't seen him.
Grandfather Junius was very involved in Seion's life. They had a very good relationship.
The boys ran the store said that last time they seen Seion, he was at the shed with them boys. And then the shed burned up. Come on now, something wrong. And you could see the black ran the door, but the shed won't burn down. There was a fire on the inside of it.
It kind of ramped up a couple of days later when they put out information online that Seion's phone was pinging near a sex offender's house on Poorhouse Road.
One of the phones that he had was an iPhone, but it didn't have service. But it was my oldest son's old iPhone. And he did find my iPhone and the phone pinged where it pinged to. I went there, nobody saw him, and then I started to receive messages stating that it was a tier 3 sex offender that lived at the home. So it was it's really awkward. So when I went there that Friday evening, they told me that he wouldn't have a reason to be down there. They don't know him.
Police came up then and told them they had to leave the property.
It was about 6 days after we assembled in Lunenburg with the search party, which was actually election day.
We began to walk down to the Poorhouse Road location. In the midst of us walking, we were stopped by an officer that was driving a Dodge Charger, a gray one, and he introduced himself as Officer Barnes. And I asked him, he asked me, did I need any help? I said, well, you can help us look for Seion. So he told me that to come closer to his vehicle, and he said, I've been looking for Seion all day. Come closer, come take a look. When I approached the car, I seen like brush and dirt and maybe some leaves on his lap, and he kind of gave it a little brush like, yeah, I've been looking for him. So me looking at him like, well, we're walking and we don't look like that, so how do you get brush and leaves and dirt on your lap in a car?
And I said, hey, I have a question. Why hasn't anyone went into the home when there's a known sex offender that lives here and you don't need a warrant to go inside of this home? And he proceeds to tell me that he's not technically considered a sex offender. Something about he was just in the car with someone and the girl, and that's how he got the charge, but technically he's not considered a sex offender. I said, well, he's registered on the sex offender registry. So how do you get registered on the sex offender registry without being considered a sex offender?
For months after Seion's body had already been found, the sex offender was actually scrubbed from the registry. And that meaning every time I looked on the sex offender registry for this sex offender, he was not there. He was not listed at that address that he was listed at, or was he in the system at all? And we've since learned that's not supposed to happen. I did go back and forth via email with a state police representative about the sex offender being off the registry. And after 2 or 3 emails, I finally got a response saying it's part of the investigation. They can't comment.
Once we arrived to the house, as we stated, we went up to the door, began to knock on the door. No one answered the door. About maybe 5 minutes later, we were greeted by state police and Lunenburg police and also Cambridge police. Then they asked us to get off the property. They told us that they wanted to see everybody who was driving, license and registration, because we were illegally parked in the street.
At the same time, it's another lady that lives not too far from that house told us that her daughter was sitting on her back porch and she heard somebody in the woods screaming for help. And she called the police and they never showed up. Did y'all hear that one? Y'all heard about that? Yeah. We also searched her property too, but it was just too much land.
The most mysterious thing in this case is how Seion was found.
The chief at that time, as he told me, just had a feeling. So I deem it by the grace of God, he happened to be in the 200 block here of Seaway and came upon this area. And once again, further investigation found it to be a clandestine grave.
In the dark, out of his jurisdiction, on a hunch, 3:30 in the morning, the woods behind me.
How he find it? How did he find it? He was the only one out there.
Just remembering some of the conversations that I had when I went there to meet with him. And every scenario he gave me that could have happened to my son had something to do with woods. Every scenario. He gave me 3 scenarios. One of them including, he takes medicine. So the medicine that he take, I went to class and I know that one of the meds that he take, he possibly could have went in the woods and committed suicide. You telling the mother that's looking for her son that he went in the woods and committed suicide?
A red flag went up. He resigned in the middle of an investigation in his town. In his town. That don't look good.
During the production of this documentary, we reached out several times to the former chief, Ben Barnes, and finally he did get back to us with a statement. We sent Ben Barnes a list of about 20 questions. He answered maybe 2 or 3 of them, and the rest, he said, were part of the state police investigation. Mr. Burkett, my resignation from the Cambridge Police Department on December 31st, 2022 was a decision I made several weeks prior to the disappearance of Seion Carroll. I chose to participate in the missing persons investigation in spite of my decision to leave the department. During the missing persons investigation, I searched several areas in the town of Cambridge and Lunenburg County. During the course of the investigation, an anonymous tip was received that led the investigation to the Seaway area in Lunenburg County. The area was searched by myself and other law enforcement officers without result. I believed a further search of the area was needed. During the further search of the area, I discovered the location of the remains. Information about the anonymous tip was previously withheld to protect the tipster and the security of the investigation. I will defer any further inquiry you have to the agency investigating the homicide, the Virginia State Police. Happy holidays to you and yours, and good luck with your story. Ben Barnes. The whole damn case is bizarre. I mean, I don't even know where you want to start at. You know, one thing we learned after interviewing grandmother is when I asked her if I was the first media interview she had, she goes, media interview? You're the first interview I had, period. It is odd. Wait, you've never been interviewed by the special agent?
No.
So you never talked to Kevin Jordan?
No.
Interviews have been conducted in this investigation. Some individuals have been interviewed more than once. We've actually had people that have voluntarily provided information.
So investigators hadn't interrogated her, and mind you, she is the last person that saw Seion alive. Brandon Lee, he was there when family members were at the church at the corner of Center Street. It was said that he and Seion were pretty good friends, but since I've talked to Brandon's mother, she just says, you know, she doesn't know how close they were. They were definitely not blood-related relatives like we've been told before.
I spoke with Brandon, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times, and his wording and his body language was just really off to me. So I knew that he had known something. And it was almost pretty much like he really wanted to tell me, but he didn't, and he didn't know how.
Brandon carried me and my friend and another friend of ours down to a Cowboy house. I told Brandon to tell Cowboy to come, I want to talk to him. He called Cowboy and said some people want to talk to you. And he came. And I got out and I walked around and I looked. I seen some down there were burning. They had been burning trash or something. He came, I went and I opened the hood, the thing on the back of the truck, and looking at it and seen the garden tools, all the garden tools.
And Junior says he doesn't think it's a coincidence that after he spoke to Cowboy, Cowboy was shot, and according to court documents we obtained, we found out that Cowboy was ambushed in a trailer he was staying in on Busy Lane.
Did Brandon help you guys search, or what was his involvement?
No, he wanted to help search, but when he seen all of us up there that Saturday, when we was getting ready to go do the search before they called tip to the office, to the police office, he said he got scared, he got paranoid, he didn't want to come up there to help. He said too many guys was up there.
It's been reported that one day after Seion's body was found, Brandon killed himself. Well, people living in that area said they heard the scanner, and they said someone on the scanner said they were behind Brandon Lee. He was running down Center Street, and that's when he ran into the woods past his house there and committed suicide. We looked for those radio transmissions, but we haven't been able to confirm that actually happened.
They said he left a note and said that he was going in the woods and go to sleep to protect his mom and dad. That's what they said was on the note, but I don't know for sure.
And if that's possible, I don't believe that he willingly committed suicide. That's just my take on it.
I want to talk to the town manager, I want to talk to the mayor and ask them what's going on down there. They, like you said, they have a lot of murders down there that haven't been solved. The same pattern. But this is the kicker, y'all. Why did Barnes tell my daughter and her aunt that Seion might have took them pills that he was taking and went in the woods and killed himself? Red flag, flag up, my ears up. Everybody that they find down there, they find them in the woods.
This should have not been his final resting place. You know, thrown on the side of the road in the bushes, like he was nothing. They didn't just take a son, they took a brother, they took a nephew, they took a grandchild. I just don't understand it. He was one of the sweetest kids that I knew.
Antonio Rich. He was 19 years old, had been shot several times. His body was discovered in a ditch on Moore's Ordinary Street in Kinbridge. So Antonio Rich and Brandon Lee were cousins. And like Seion with his grandmother and Brandon Lee, of course, Rich lived on Center Street at one point in his life.
No parent should have to come visit a child here, not under the circumstances. I found out that Friday. They found him on the 15th. I found out that Friday. The detective and the sheriff came and he knocked on the door. I already knew when I opened the door and knew it was them, that it was my son. I could hear myself screaming, and when they told me it was him, my neighbors on the other street heard me screaming. Sheriff Townsend gave me his condolences, and he said, I'm so sorry, but it was Antonio. He said, and I couldn't tell you. He said, because he didn't have a positive ID on him. He said, so we had to send him off to the medical examiner to get a positive ID. That was the only time that I talked to the sheriff department because, of course, the detective that was there was from the state troopers.
When we asked Agent George specifically about this case, he said he didn't have permission of the family to talk about it.
From what I was told, 5 gunshot wounds. He died from the gunshot wounds. I'm assuming the torso because they had him wrapped up in plastic. And I know my son's hand, his right hand was smashed. You could tell that he fought back. He had a scratch mark, and I think like a little chunk of his ear was gone. And when you think it's a small town, you would think that the case would have got solved a little bit faster. Because it's somebody that knows my child personally, I don't think it was a stranger to him. I think it was somebody that he knew.
So during the Antonio Rich investigation, we realized that some of the names from the Seion Carroll case, that circle of friends, they were also coming up in Antonio's case. So I asked Special Agent Kevin George with the state police if he believed these two cases were connected.
The 2020 homicide that I'm investigating and the 2022 homicide involving Seion Carroll, I have yet to find any connection to those homicides.
It seemed like the police don't care enough because every time you hear somebody make a comment and they keep making a comment, oh, it's drugs, it's drugs. Drugs is not the root of every problem in this small town.
Have you come across anything like a drug nexus, or, we always ask for motives.
I can't say that I've found a nexus that I can corroborate as a motive for this homicide.
Sometimes I just think, was he dead when they dropped him off? Was he suffering? If somebody would have found him in time, could they have saved him? Somebody out there knows something. I understand that people don't want to go to the police, but I'm his mother. Come to me. I just want to know why, and I want to know who. Somebody deserves to be behind bars for this. He had so much life left in him, and I'll never know. I'll never know what would have became of his life, and I have to live with that.
Center Street was just a love little spot. We called it the bottom. You came from the bottom, then we at the top. It's just like, it was just so calm and cool down there. Like growing up as a kid, my mom's house right here, my cousin's house, my other cousin's house, aunt house, great aunt, uncle, whatever we were doing as kids, it won't never like dangerous or we had to look over our shoulder or scare anything. Like, it was just so like, it was a good community. I just feel like it's a ghost town. It's like it's quiet. For my brother, for my cousin Brandon, cousin Tone, my aunt Pat, it just felt like it ain't gonna be the same down there no more.
Carlton Craig lost his life in Victoria, Virginia, not too far from here, September 24th of 2023.
Medic 2 wants to request an ALS for a suicide attempt. Call advised the subject is breathing, shot himself in the head. They advised that they're applying pressure now.
The 911 call for Carlton Craig came in as a suicide, but when deputies arrived on scene, they had 6 people inside the apartment. And of course, Carlton was dead, and someone had apparently rifled through his pockets.
I got a phone call at 5:30 that morning from a neighbor that lived under the apartment that he was found in. From what I got, he was fighting in the parking lot. So I don't know if he was fighting in the parking lot and he ran in the house. He had just got his driver's license.
But it wasn't at the scene.
Nothing. His wallet, cell phone, nothing.
I tried to find me app to track the phone, didn't go off anything. I tried to call it and call it and call it. It's just, I don't know, if he in somebody's apartment and they know him and know you and our family and they proclaim somebody after him, why not be like, we're gonna take care of this.
Or help him.
Or we're going to help you. We're going to get you out of here. Or we're going to find out who's after you.
She said she went and told the manager at the village estate that somebody was holding them hostage and shot a young man. If somebody holding you hostage, somebody else shot besides me, ain't it?
Family members telling us when they, the deputies went to investigate, the scene wasn't roped off like normal major crimes would be roped off. There were people walking in and out of the apartment. So if there was any option for tainted evidence, it was there because the family said they were walking in and out freely.
I found my son's hoodie at somebody else's house, washed, soaking wet when I got it back.
The same exact hoodie he had on when he murdered his wife.
Yeah, when he was supposed to commit suicide.
Just ruled it as a suicide and cleaned him up. Well, picked him up and put him in a damn body bag. Excuse my language. And just told everybody, let's back to normal. Blood up in the apartment. I had to see my mom clean my brother brain off to the floor, man. It's all right though. Just really getting to the details. There's so many facts and pieces to the puzzle. I just feel like it's not all put together. And I want justice, one way or another. That's why I'm talking and making phone calls and trying to get to the bottom of it. That way I can help out as best way as possible with this and everything else going on. But this right here is my main concern. This is my little brother. So I feel like I just need a little more help with the sheriff and anybody else that got questions, people that was in the apartment, people that he called that night, people that seen him the night before or prior that night. I just want a little more than what I got right now. So that's all I'm asking for.
It'll never be no justice. Just tell me, how could you kill my son?
He's my son. He's my great nephew. I got him when he's 3, and that's where he's been. So I said my son. He said mama. So he knew his mother, but when you raise someone, they call you what they call you. So I was his mama. He would help anybody. He was a good person. He would help anybody. If I was to pull a trash can out while he's in that house, he'd have a fit. Could cook, clean better than I do. He had manners. He did silly stuff like all young people do when he was younger, but he was a good person. He had manners. He didn't disrespect anybody. That's why I don't understand this.
Kenyale Lee is also Brandon Lee's cousin. He went missing April 16th of 2021.
He come in the driveway with some girl, come up to the house, switch clothes, left, and that's the last time I seen him. I did not think that would be the last time I see him, but it was.
We also spoke with his biological mother.
And that would hurt because I missed so much out of his life, and when we started getting a relationship together, I didn't think that the last time I would hear from him, for me to come pick him up, and that would hurt because I wasn't able to do that. When he really needed me, the one time that he needed me, I couldn't save him because he didn't tell me where he was at.
24th of April was my other son's birthday. He don't miss calling him, they were real tight. It was Trav's birthday, and he would always call him, but he didn't. Then we had a call that on the 28th, someone called an ambulance and said he had a seizure in front of the Wedgwood Motel, but he refused to go to the hospital. Nobody heard anything since, nobody saw him. I went to Blackstone, I made up flyers, had those flyers made up, so I cast some flyers, went in the motel, showed it to them. They said they don't know him, they never seen him. I hung flyers in every pole window, and they would let me hang them, asking people if they seen him. Did they know? All I know is the ambulance, people say he did not get on the ambulance. That's all I know.
At one point during the interview, Alicia went over some rumors that she had heard what happened to her son.
They had put him in a wood shed. I heard that. They threw his body in between a creek, in between Blackstone and Cambridge. That he was supposed to be in somebody's trailer. I mean, the trailers that you drive on the trucks. He was supposed to be in one of those Those were the rumors that I heard.
What are you thinking about?
I just, I don't like to hurt her sick. And he's putting up shredder.
And it's a lot. It's people that knows what happened. It's people that knows what happened to my son. Because, you know, they're like throwing bits and pieces out there. The officer came to me and told me that my son was deceased. He said, I can tell you that your son is deceased. And there's 2 particular people in Lunenburg County that knows what happens to your son. He said, I will give you further details when I find out more. That was the last time I heard from that officer. That was about 2 years ago.
I don't accept that. I never will until I have proof that he's gone. I still look for him to come through the door. I feel like nobody's looking for him. Like we're the only ones wondering where he's at, what happened. I don't feel like he just walked off because he would not do that. He's been a traveler, but he will always let me know where he's at. He never missed a birthday. He never missed Mother's Day. He's gonna call me. I'm gonna know where he's at, but I don't. And it's just, you can't just vanish like that. I believe he's out there somewhere.
My stepson, Arthur Waverly Banks Jr., and I feel like he was just like my son because I never had a son of my own, and I took him in as my own son. I was the last one to see him alive, and that day that I saw him alive, because I always picked him up and carried him to town and bring him back. That day he was happier than I ever seen him in my life. And he was talking about doing some work to the house that we had up there where he was living in. I told him, go ahead, help yourself. And that was the last time I talked to him. We owned property that was formerly owned by my granddad and my father. Where we standing now, my heritage, and this is where I was born at, on this property also. You know, so we down the road from Seaway. The whole farm is like 80-some acres all together. I named this road over here, Sea. When they named the road, I told them I wanted to name it Sea, because there's been a lot going on since we left from over here. It started here, and then up there. So we don't actually know, you know, what all going on, and nobody's saying nothing. He always liked to be around a lot of guys, and he always liked to walk down these woods where you see behind me. And he used to walk through these woods, and we tried to stop him from doing it, but he would never do it. He loved to walk through the woods. And so I know that he had to be down in these woods, or he's going with some guys somewhere. In my church, you got a bunch of hunters. And so I called him up and asked him, I say, I want you to go with me down here, and we're going to try to find my son, because I think he's in the woods. And so in the meantime, Moore, which was the Moore family, his son said that, called and said, we're not gonna wait till you get from work. We're gonna go ahead on down there now. And they walked down through the woods, and they found him hanging up in a tree. And so the first thing they done was call the state police. And the state police and the sheriff department, they came out. And we never heard nothing about the police report or anything. We never heard nothing from them. And then when we got the medical examiner paper back, that it was suicide. And we never could find out exactly what happened and all, and we'd like to get some closure on it so we'll know for sure that he actually hung himself. Because we don't know. They just found him down here. And look, the way things look, is a possibility that somebody ended up doing it and set it up to make it look like it was suicide. I mean, the other case that the guy over here next door to us, they buried him in the ground, cut the body up and buried him in the ground. You know, that happened after this right here. And so it don't add up that don't happen over there and they gonna bury him over on the same property when this will happen over here. You know, it looked like somebody is targeting this area, and they're using it for, because I think, and they think they can get away that way. You know, they're putting it in the same area, on the same part of the land, and you know, it could be some connection there somewhere.
The sad truth is that victims
What it is. I think where some of the problem lies in this
victims' rights.
I just want answers. I really do want answers.
And I'm gonna continue keeping his name alive until I get justice. And after justice, I'm gonna keep his name alive because justice will be served.
It's very overwhelming, but I won't stop.
One thing for sure, whoever did it, God gonna take care of that.
So they say what happens in a small town stays in a small town. It's not really holding true for Lunenburg County. This is a community crying out for help. And as the tips keep rolling in, we will update you. If you have information that can help solve these murders, you're asked to call 833-RTCF-MVA or email tips@reopenthecase.org.